So the first perspective that I would like to share there is, you have to listen to the murmurings of your heart, because that is so critically important when you are defining your career journey. So, if you, in the Australian outbacks, there is a sign which says that carefully choose your rut, because you will be in it for 1,000 miles. So the profession and the career that we choose, in which more often than not we spend 20 years, 30 years, we have to choose very carefully. So just to give you an example from my own personal experience, so I did my engineering, I did my master's in management also, and when I was doing my master's, I was in a way lucky that I specialized in training and development in HR, and I will come back to it later. But after that, the jobs that I got, the initial breakthrough that I got, I became a branch head in an organization known as EC Industries. So I had worked in Anchor Electronics earlier and then EC Industries, both. This was an engineering company. And frankly, I was not enjoying myself. Though at that young age, I became a branch head. There were 141 people in Rajasthan. I got an opportunity to head Punjab also. But I was not really enjoying myself. In a way, my heart was not singing. And all the time I would listen to myself, and there would be this voice, this murmuring, which would come that I should go into teaching. Now, I had no background of teaching at all. So one day I was going in my car, and there was this new MBA institute which had come up in Jaipur. I stopped my car, I entered, I talked to the director that I want to teach. He was probably throwing me out, but probably they didn't have a economics professor. So he said, okay, can you teach economics? I'm like, okay, yes. I had not taught, but I said yes. And only condition I had was that I should be getting the morning class. He said, our college starts at 8 o'clock. So the 8 o'clock, 8 to 8:55 is the session I took. After that, I kept on teaching there. I kept on working also as a branch head. And then I became a full-time in assistant professor. And finally, this entire journey of training and development happened. I got an opportunity to join HDFC Life, because insurance was opening up. At that point of time, I had no clue that this would be such a rewarding journey. I would reach the pinnacle. I would become head of training and development in Max Bopa, which I was, and so on and so forth. It has been an absolutely rewarding journey for me. The reason is it is aligned to my passion. So I love, for example, reading books. As you can see, there are books behind me also. So here also in my cabin, I have books. Similarly, when in EC I had become branch head, I had got a cabin at that young age. In there was a bookshelf. I got a lot of my books, I put it there. My general manager came and he said, Vivek, when do you get the time to read these books? And he was completely nonchalant about it. Rather, he was skeptical that why is he keeping the books here in an engineering company. Later on, when I became head of training in Max, I again got a cabin. And there I had a bookshelf. I put my books, and the CEO, Dr. Damien Marion, came to me, and he used to look at it. He used to say, very good. Training head needs to be a person who should be a well-read person. So I'm really happy that Vivek, you love books. Vivek is the same Vivek. There are some things that I am passionate about. If you are in that right profession, where your innate talents are able to bloom and blossom, I think that is so critically important. That is one message that I would, I can keep repeating this message again and again, but this is the biggest message that I want to give. And let me add to that. Let me just add to that. Passion means purpose. Also, because if you have an innate talent, for example, if I have to create a training program, if I have to design a training program, and for designing that training program, you need to go through, let's say, 4 books. Because you need to be updated if you are in training development. It's not an easy job. You have people who, if I now do a program, there are directors with 25 years of experience who are coming and sitting there. If I have an innate, not only talent, but interest, I can beat someone downright on that. Because corporate is a very competitive environment. So there are things which are going to enhance your energy, and there are things which are going to diminish your energy. So if you are doing something where 80% of your job is something where the energy gets enhanced, then only you can succeed. Otherwise, you will not be able to compete at all. So I can compete with anyone for creating a training program because I have an innate interest and talent in it, and my energy goes up when I'm doing it. Maybe if I would have been into some other area, I would have been a mediocre branch head or a mediocre manager in an engineering concern, if that is what I would have chosen for myself. I have many more examples of this from my experience in life. I will repeat them if required later, but over to you. No, absolutely. The answer that I gave just now also is in the same line. I would just like to build on that, because as you grow up in the hierarchy, definitely your strengths will allow you to succeed more, as I have already said. It is also important that we recognize our strength to a large extent. And as leaders, as managers, and as coaches, because increasingly as a manager, you become more like a mentor and a coach. It is important that you also identify the strengths of others. So strength spotting, your ability to spot strengths in others and try to leverage that, is a critical managerial or leadership skill that I would really, like to highlight. Let me give you an example. So I was head of training and quality at Max Bopa, and at that time there was a lot of churn which was happening in the industry. There was a lot of attrition which was happening in the organization and otherwise also in the insurance sector, in the health insurance sector in particular. But for 5.5 years, I had zero attrition in my team. So there were 7 people who were directly reporting. There were more than 40 people who were there in the team. So right management did a study, and they came to me and they in a way inquired, why is it that there is zero attrition there in your team? So one of the things that I did right probably was that in the initial phase, I got oriented towards the strength philosophy from Gallup, and there was a book, First Discover Your Strength by Marcus Buckingham and Donald Clifton. So I read that book. I had taken the strength assessment myself. I just loved it. I loved the entire idea, the philosophy. I understood my talents, innate talents, and so on and so forth. What I did was I gave this book to everyone in my team, and I made them take the assessment, and I had their strength profile with me. So because I had their strength profile with me, I knew which person has the talent and interest in which area, and I tried to assign work accordingly, to the extent that I changed people's designations. So I moved people around to ensure that they are aligned to the work that they are doing, which is aligned to their innate talent and strength. And I completely believe that if you are doing something which you enjoy doing, even if you don't get a 30% hike, even if you don't get a 20% hike, you will still enjoy doing it. In Gallup, so there's another book in Gallup which is there, first now break all the rules. So when I do training for managers, there are 12 questions there. So one of the questions is very fascinating. Do you get an opportunity to do what you love doing every day in your job? That is a question. And through that question, they are trying to measure your engagement with the role. And if you are engaged in the role, then your productivity is higher. That is also a direct correlation. That's a causation. So it is so critically important that managers recognize that managers don't try to change people. There's a lot of personality is genetic. Again, there is research in that. And they try to find out what is good in someone, what makes someone tick, and draw that out. I tried to do that in Max, and that is perhaps the reason why there was no attrition. As I mentioned, I changed people's jobs. I understood there was one person who was fantastic with analytics and MIS. He was not a good fit in the training manager role. I made him the MIS and analytics head, and he just thrived in that. So, finding this, and I have been lucky that my managers, and I have had great mentors as managers. So, people, for example, when I gave the HDFC interview, there were a lot of people who had the experience of being a training manager in different companies. But Frederick D'Souza, who was the national training manager, chose me. I was coming from academics. And later on, I asked him this question. I said, Fred, what made you choose me? Because there were so many others who had more experience than me. He said, the reason I chose you, Vivek, was I saw that passion for teaching in you. And that is what I was looking for. And same way, when I select people, I look at that passion. Is his eyes shining when he's talking about this? And is there that energy which is there? Because if that is there, then you can teach the competence. Then you can teach the skill. Then you can give the knowledge. So I have personally followed it. I have created programs, leadership development programs, using the Strength Finder to that extent. And I was doing a program for HSBC, and there was senior leader, director. She was so fascinated by this. Again, she created an Excel of the strengths of her team members. And she said, Vivek, I would keep this Excel in mind when I am assigning work or when I'm orienting people. So this is really critical. No, absolutely. I think this is also a great question. Because when you work in different organizations, as I have done, every organization has a different culture. And those unwritten norms dictate who gets rewarded, who gets promoted, who gets recognized, and how do you fit in. Now, obviously, fitting in is important, and you have to stand out, but before standing out, you have to fit in. So I read a book, Michael Watkins' First 90 Days, many years ago, when I was joining Max. And one of the key lessons was that when you join a new organization, the first 90 days are critical. Now here also in Avas, when I do for the induction program, new managers orientation program, I do a session. In that session, one of the messages that I have is that please use the first 90 days to learn about the culture of the organization. Every organization, there are certain factors which is leading to its success. There are certain unwritten norms of behavior, because learning, more important than learning, is sometimes unlearning. So unlearning is, because what happens is that something that made you a success till now, and if you try to do too many things too fast, too soon, without understanding the culture, you are going to fall flat. Let me give you a couple of examples. In EC industries, where I was the branch head, I gave you a role earlier. There the culture was very different. There the culture was, it was very hierarchical culture. And if as a branch head, if I would call a junior to my cabin, he would literally be, he would be threatened actually. And I had to maneuver around it. But when I joined HDFC, it was a first time culture. My boss was Frederick D'Souza. He used to say, call me Fred. I worked with a Britisher, Phil Heyman, who was my manager in Tata AIG. He used to say, call me Phil. Now that was a first name culture. But whether it is Tata, the culture was different. HDFC, the culture was different. Max, the culture was very different. So I think it is imperative that when you join an organization, or when you get into a new role, or when you get promoted into a new role, that you take some time, take a pause, and understand what makes it tick. And the easiest way is, who are the people who are getting recognized here? That makes you understand what gets rewarded in this organization. There are organizations which are collaborative, there are organizations which are competitive. Now, if there is an organization which is competitive, where everyone is yearning to put his flag, and there you try to be collaborative, it may or may not work. So that is something that I have personally, followed also in my life. I have learned also from my mentors. I have learned from mentors like Fred and Phil and others. And not only that, I'll add one element to that. Even when your CEO changes, or when your boss changes, that is also an important time where you have to again take restock of who is that stakeholder that you are going to work with. Because personality of people are different. And it is our job as an executive, as an ambitious executive who wants to create value, who wants to contribute, that we have to align ourselves. So a mistake that many managers can make is they continue to do the same thing, not changing a little bit in terms of if the situation has changed, the environment has changed. If a new CEO comes in, the culture is bound to change a little bit. If there is a leadership change which is there, and I have been I've been through certain leadership changes in my career. So this is our message I would really like to give, because that is a time when you have to take a restock and also again reorient yourself to a certain extent with the new culture which is emerging. And finally, strategic. Here it is very important that you think ahead. One of the critical competencies that a manager needs to have, in HDFC we used to have assessment development centers, and there we used to check whether someone has a strategic component or not. And we used to ask this question that in the last 1 year, has there been a process that you have improved a little bit? And many people will not be able to answer that. Many people said that we followed the process. Many people would be thinking ahead and understanding that there has to be some change that we have to create. So continuously adding value wherever you are, in whichever role you are, is, I think, critically important. No, absolutely. Pratikya, I think that's again another great question, and it is so critically important. By the way, I discovered when I got married that my Janapatri name was Eklavya. So my grandfather had given my name Eklavya, and my name Vivek also means application of knowledge. And I have discovered many Viveks in the training and development field. So I don't know what to make of it. Few years ago, my son was in 8th standard. I was preparing for a training program, and I was reading a book, as is my, as I mentioned, I am an avid reader. And he said, Papa, aapka kaun sa exam hai abhi? Because he was thinking that, which book you are reading for the next exam which is there. So life is a continuous examination that way. As executives, as managers, as ambitious managers, we need to continuously learn and relearn. And a great example that I can give myself is during the COVID era. So during the COVID era, I came from an old school where we used to do training programs which were physical. So we'll get everyone together and we will do physical programs. And obviously during COVID, lockdown happened, everyone was shut down, and we had to utilize technology. We had to utilize Zoom and other technologies. Immediately when I started doing some programs on Zoom and MS Teams, I immediately realized that, it is becoming more like a lecture. And so many years ago, when I came from academics to training, I understood that training is very different from academics. It has to be experiential, it has to be interactive, it has to ensure that we are able to utilize the adult learning principles and engage the audience, the learners in a certain way. So that was my grounding, which was a great learning which I had. But on Zoom again, it was like a lecture. So I enrolled myself into a program and understood and learned how to make Zoom trainings or MS Teams training more interactive, more experiential. Then we co-created programs again, and we got feedback of 4.9 out of 5. People said that it was as good as you are in a room. Utilizing various tools, utilizing polls, utilizing different rooms that we can create, and so on and so forth. Every experiential tool that we could use, we started using. Even here in Avas also, we created a training studio. We started doing training programs from here. And suddenly the entire impact was very different. So many things which are now possible in learning and development through the harnessing the power of technology was not possible earlier. I have personally learned, I myself enrolled for 5 different Udemy programs and completed them in that 1.5 years when I was, when we were all cooped up. So my point is that 100% learning is important. 100% we need to not only keep updated ourselves, but we have to look at how can technology solve a problem of yesterday, which can be solved by technology today. Now, if we have to be on the cutting edge, this is something that continuously every manager, every leader has to ask himself or herself. And many of these answers are not possible. They are really possible. Some things are possible which were 100% not possible earlier. In learning and development, I know you can measure people's competence, you can assess, you can do so many things which were not possible earlier. So this is, I think it's an example for learning only, and and we need to do that continuously.
Learned a lot.
It was a byproduct. It was not a great time, but it was a byproduct which was there, and organizations and employees who invested in themselves during that time have come back stronger.
Stronger.
And this is research everywhere. So every time such period of great turbulence has come, organizations and employees who have invested in themselves, they have come back stronger. So 100%, I completely agree that, there are two different mindsets. And again, this is something that I train leaders and managers also on. That, you can never get ahead. You can't get promoted just by being reactive. If you are being reactive, you are just doing what your manager has asked you to do. Obviously, that is important, because if you don't do that, you will lose your job. So, which means that you have to deliver that. But if you're only delivering what your director or your manager has told you to do, forget that you will get promoted, or you will have better assignments, or you will get better projects. Ultimately, it is about taking the lead. What proactiveness means is that, again, this is something that again I learned many years ago. Actually, in a training program. It was incidentally a training program that I was attending, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I just understood this difference. I thought that, boss, this is something very critical. Which means, and I got promoted 8 to 9 times, from that period, again and again. And I think I attribute this success to this mindset only, where you have to continuously think that, okay, what is the new initiative that you will take? So as head of training, when I'm leading here or earlier in Max and even in Tata, I'll also, because there are some things that you have to deliver right now, which are operational. So for delivering that operational matters, I use a rule which is the 80-20 rule, which is a very well-known rule. But the way I use that rule in this category, in this case, is that 80% of the time, okay, deliver what is operationally required. So one job of manager is to deliver the present, but another job of manager is to also proactively create the future. So what is the future that you want to create? And you have to, 20% of the time, 20% of your time, energy, effort has to move in that direction. The only way you can do that is that you start delegating. So operational matters, you get someone and you delegate to that person. So you delegate and you coach that person, because if you will keep doing what you have been doing, you will keep getting what you are getting, and there's no proactive approach that you can then adopt. So if there's a training program that I've been doing, I need to get someone in the team, I need to equip that person, I need to coach that person, and I need to ensure that that person takes care of that. So some parts of my job, I have to continuously delegate and create competency and capability downstream so that they get delivered well. Obviously, you take stock of that, you review that on a regular basis, but you are doing that not with the intent to play golf. Obviously, if you want to play golf, you do that, but you are doing that with the intent of taking the lead. So a question that I ask myself every week, I ask this question in every role that I have been there, and I teach it also to people, is what is the point of maximum contribution for me? So this question you can only answer for yourself. So every manager, so if you are asking this question as head of training, if I am asking this question, if there is a project of worth 1 crore, only you can go to the CEO and the CPO and get it approved. Your team member cannot go and set up that meeting and get that 1 crore approval. But if an induction program is happening, obviously your training manager in your team can handle that induction program. So my point is, you have to think about what is the value addition that you can bring, and particularly any role. And you think like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs famously said that my customers don't know what they need until I give it to them. So don't expect that your director, your CPO, your CEO is going to come back to you and say that, Vivek, I need this training. It is your job to figure out what the organization needs, then go and rally and get that approvals and make that happen. If this is the way you start thinking, then definitely you can add value. Otherwise, you are just passing time. So we have to understand these zones a little better. So in my mind, comfort zone is what? Comfort zone is something that you are comfortable with, which basically means that you have done it, that is a skill that you possess, and you can deliver that. What is the achievement zone? Achievement zone is something that you want to obviously achieve. Now it stands to reason, if there is an aspiration that you have to make something happen which has not happened till now, it means that it is out of your comfort zone. There is some new learning which needs to happen. There needs to be a new different mindset that you need to approach something. Otherwise, it would have already happened. So if it has not happened in the past, now it is your aspiration. Now it is your achievement that you want to create in your life. It is out of your comfort zone and it is in your achievement zone. But between the comfort zone and the achievement zone is the learning zone, which means that there is some new skill. Maybe there is a new competency, maybe there is a new mindset that you need to cultivate. And as I mentioned earlier, learning is not only about learning new things, many a times it is about unlearning also. Many a times it is about stopping to do something which you were earlier doing and which is not giving the results that you want to create. Now this feedback you will continuously get. The point that I am trying to make here is, human beings, we get into comfort zone very fast. As soon as we are good enough, one of my favorite books is Good to Great by Jim Collins. And Jim Collins says in his book that good is the enemy of great. So as soon as we become good in something, then we stop learning. But if the achievement zone is there and you have to come out of your comfort zone, continuously you have to experiment. What is learning? Learning is experimenting, trying on a new behavior which you have not tried earlier. So learning is an insight which leads to a change in behavior. Look at players like Virat Kohli, for example. Virat is a great learner. He went on to an England tour and he completely miserably failed. Next time he went, he scored a century. And I was watching an interview. The first time people trolled Anushka. But next time he went, so in an interview he said that, he continuously learned that bowlers were getting him out on that swinging wicket by pitching it outside, and he used to play his favorite shot, which was, the cover drive on the up. He said, I cut out that shot completely. In that next inning, when he went back to England, he did not play that shot at all. That is unlearning. That is a great example of unlearning, because he defined success that, if I can stay on that crease for a longer period of time, then I can definitely make runs. This is my example. And great leaders, great managers, great players, they continuously review themselves to learn and change a little bit of that behavior that they are following. So this is what I personally like to do that. But obviously you cannot do everything new. So comfort zone is also important, because otherwise you may make a hash of things. Again, I fall back on my tried and tested 80-20 rule, which says to be, or 60-20-20. And this I learned from another senior HR executive. This says that 60% time do what has earlier worked, 20% time to do something new, and 20% time experiment. Or make it simple, 80-20, 80% repeat something which has already worked, so that you don't make a fool of yourself. 20% try to interject new things, which will make your life also interesting, and which will ensure that you are trying some new things and you are getting some data points of what is working and what is not working, and therefore you are creating yourself for tomorrow and your organization for tomorrow, and you are challenging yourself continuously. So I think we have already, mentioned them. One obviously is the learning ability. Your ability to continuously learn and reinvent yourself. I think this is critically important in a changing environment, in a changing world. Second, I would also say adaptability. Your ability to adapt. Because when things are changing, when stakeholders change, when intentions of stakeholders change, or when the goals of organizations change, you need to have your ability to adapt. And third is resilience. The setbacks are par on course. Setbacks will happen. But you have to give yourself the mindset that my comeback will be stronger than my setback. So every time a setback happens, the message which should go to you is that this setback is setting me up for a better comeback. So then you can take the learnings. Yesterday I had a meeting with the CEO and the CTO. It did not go as planned. I was hoping that I'll get the approval for a project that we were talking about, but it didn't happen. And there were some challenging questions that the CEO asked, and I did not have the answers. I came back. Obviously, I was disappointed. But today morning, I gave myself the message that my comeback will be stronger than my setback. And because of that, I started collating the information in a different way. And I'm sure that the next meeting, I'll get the approval. So why? Because when a setback happens, that is the time when some new learning, there's a potential for new learning to emerge. Because if everything has gone to plan, then there's no learning. There is only celebration. But if something has not gone to plan, then you step back and then you assess that, boss, there is something that I could have done differently, or there is something that I probably misread, or there is something I did not read the room correctly, or did not get the right information. And then you prepare yourself. So the example that I gave of someone like Virat Kohli, 100%, great leaders, great managers, great executives, great players, they do that all the time. So resilience. So learning, adaptability, and resilience. I think these are the three most critical skills. So that's a difficult one for someone who reads so many. But definitely, yeah, Carol Dweck mindset, I would say. Because Carol Dweck is a psychologist whom I really admire. And her book Mindset talks about the growth mindset. That, if you have not learned something, that, there is a ability that you have to learn and apply yourself. So Mindset by Carol Dweck, definitely. I talked about the Strength Finder book, the Gallup books, particularly First Break All, Now Discover Your Strength by Marcus Buckingham. So, and Give and Take by Adam Grant. I've given 3, but yeah, Mindset, Carol Dweck, number 1, and then Give and Take by Adam Grant is another good one. Strengths